Hello and welcome back to Paranormal NL Podcast, PNL Podcast for short, with UPRN, United Public Radio Network 107.7 New Orleans and 105.3 FM Gulf Coast. I'm your host, Jen. Now, Paranormal NL Podcast is a place where the people of Newfoundland and Labrador, Canada, and anywhere else in the world can share their paranormal experiences. UPRN, again, is United Public Radio Network on 107.7 FM, New Orleans, USA, and 105.3 FM, the Gulf Coast. And listen to Paranormal NL Podcast on UPRN on Tuesdays at 5 p.m. EST, and follow UPRN at uprntalkradio.com and all their socials. Paranormal NL Podcast is sponsored by the BOG team. And follow Paranormal NL Podcast at paranormal.nl.podcast@gmail.com and also on our link tree. Now, in this episode, in this pre-recorded segment, I get to talk with the Brothers of Arcana podcast, BOTA, and that's with Alex and Dave, and I'll bring them on the stage shortly. When we continue, what I'm going to do is bring them on the stage right now. I was going to do their write-up, but I'll let them do their write-up. Dave, Alex, yo, welcome.
Good evening, New Jersey.
New Jersey. Welcome from New Jersey. Listen, tell us about you guys. Introduce yourselves here now. I'm going to take this music off.
Well, we are Brothers of the Arcana, podcast BOTA at gmail.com. My name is Alex Aldea.
I am Dave Ferrigno, co-host of Brothers of the Arcana.
That's right. And we hail out of New Jersey. We're both Freemasons. That's where the brothers part comes in. And Arcana is we used to smoke cigars, drink bourbon, and talk about all kinds of crazy esoteric things, from Bigfoot and Loch Ness Monster all the way to alien invasions and what the pyramids are used for, and ancient apocalypses, Younger Dryas. You have it. So
I love that. I love that.
Yeah,
especially love the Masonic part. All of the men in my family are Masonic. Deep, rich history there. Yeah, for sure.
You hang out with a good crop of folks, I guess.
Yeah, I could even say, I won't say which member of the family, but one of the members was also the Grand Master here in Newfoundland. So, yeah, nice,
very cool.
Deep, rich history. So, and unfortunately, our Masonic here got sold, the bigger one. And now they're at a smaller place, but the historical one, it's still on the go, but they actually sourced it out, which was really sad. But tell me about how your name got together, and like, when did you get together, and how did it all happen, Dave and Alex?
Well, go ahead, Dave.
So Alex and I were past masters together. So for those of you who are not familiar with Freemasonry, we were worshipful masters of our lodge. It's essentially the president, CEO. We operate the lodge. So Alex and I became fast friends, a couple of years back. We had a lot in common with the esoteric. We're deep into the esotericist, or if we like to call ourselves esotericists, I should say. But
we're esoteric either way.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Exactly. But the way Brothers of the Arcana came about, we were actually having cigars back in March. We're just hanging out one night. We're shooting, the crap, as you could say. And
what you shoot.
Next thing we know, we're just like, we should really record this. I think people would be interested.
And they are, definitely.
We just said, well, maybe we should do a podcast. That could be fun. And we started talking about names, as Alex could attest to. We had Brothers of the Arcane, Brothers of the Arcana. I was like, it's the noun versus adjective. We ended up going with the Arcana. I just felt like it had a better ring to it. And since then, we've had a fantastic bunch of episodes. So our first episode, especially, we had an astrophysicist on who worked for NASA on the James Webb Space Telescope.
Oh, wow.
He divulged some amazing information on that episode, talking aliens, UFOs, ancient Egypt, and, there's
all excellent topics.
Yeah, there's definitely an Easter egg in there that, basically it's not really necessarily public knowledge yet. So,
he got a little bit of a hand slap on that one. Told, listen, you signed an NDA, and there's some stuff in there you said that you might. You're skirting the edge. Yeah. Let's say that. So
he was
Yeah,
very
I've
close
had,
there.
some people clicking in and listening on the podcast, depending on who you have on the show. Particularly when you're talking about conspiracy theories, you hear a lot of
yeah.
weird clicking. And one time we got booted off. I was like, yeah. And he came back on. He's like, yeah, man, they're listening again. So tell me about some of the guests that you've had on that stick out in your mind.
That's a great question. I mean, the guy we just had on today was pretty awesome. Eric Ireland, he's a mindfulness coach out of California, talking about non-duality and basically how to keep your thoughts at bay, finish the squirrel mind idea, and like live in the present moment and things like that. Chuck Dunning, the guy we had before then, he's a Mason and a big-time Mason, does contemplative Masonry. He calls himself a Christian esotericist. So he mixes Christianity with a fair amount of esoteric background, emerald tablets of Hermes, all kinds of hermetic things, Rosicrucianism, Martinism, all kinds of other esoteric organizations out there, Golden Dawn, a lot of things like that, Scottish Rite Freemasonry, and so on.
I wish they had more of the Masonic stuff here for women in Newfoundland. I know in the U.S., they've got the different branch over there, but there's not much of it here at all when it comes to women, and it's too bad, that there's not, because I'm sure that I don't know if you had a lot of women ask you about stuff like that. Have you? Or
yeah, I would say so. Overall, I mean, you have OES, which is the Order of the Eastern Star, which is a female auxiliary organization, and we have actually a really good friend of ours who's involved in OES. There's also something called confraternity or cofraternity, which is basically, and we have a friend who's in that as well. It's Masonry for women, only for women. Men are not allowed. And they are acknowledged by the United Grand Lodge of England, but we don't hold we don't go to their lodges. They don't come to our lodges, and so it's only women, and they call each other brother, and so it's very interesting. And they do very similar, I guess, to what we do in terms of rituals and things like that. The place I know of is out of DC. And there's some, but it's all very new. At least in America, it's all very new. In France and other places, it's been around much longer. So,
yeah, that's good to hear. Interesting stuff for sure. So, tell us some more things about some strange and weird and wonderful podcasts that you've done, or do you have any of your own experiences? I didn't ask you that.
Oh, yeah,
plenty of those. I am a paranormal investigator as well, so I'm part of two paranormal societies. Which Revolutionary Paranormal Society here in Morristown, New Jersey. Also part of Ghost Seekers International. We're partnered with Stephen McKinley over in London. So, we've definitely had some fun investigations. We're actually supposed to do an investigation tonight after this episode.
Fun.
So should be interesting.
Anywhere in particular you're going without divulging the location's name, or?
Yeah, so actually it's a fellow brother Mason. It was actually January of this year, he contacted me and said, listen, he's like, this is going to sound absolutely nuts. I was like, okay. Coming from him, it's just like, sure, whatever.
Yeah.
But he said, my son keeps saying he's seeing this guy in his room and the guy's telling him to hurt himself and do all this other stuff. So as soon as I heard that, I was just like, okay, this isn't good. We're going to have to come out. So
not really
ended up calling the members of our paranormal society, one of which is a medium, Dorothy Toner. So she ended up saying, all right, let's go. We ended up going there. Turns out it was multiple entities in the house, but one of the entities was actually the original owner. He was absolutely fine. He was trying to protect the son. And there was what turned out that we believe it was a jinn. Dorothy said it was a jinn. We ended up extracting that out of the house, said, listen, go cause mischief elsewhere. Don't bother them.
Yeah.
After that, they were completely at peace up until now. And suddenly the last 2 days, the son said, oh, I keep seeing the devil, I think, or whatever it is. He keeps describing it as the devil, so we're gonna go back tonight and figure out what's going on.
Yeah, it sounds
Yeah,
like
but they said
need
they
some
have
help.
lights flickering, doors are opening on their own, closing, drawers, other stuff. So
And again, it's a lot
definitely,
of the threats, a lot of the like potentially hurting himself kind of thing, which we can't have. So
Yeah, no, you definitely can't have that. And do you have a lot of homes, like people that reach out to you like that, personal homes?
we do. And the thing is, like, we try to film everything, but of course, the one thing we've been trying to figure out how to scientifically prove, like, hey, the paranormal exists, it's there. You watch all the different TV shows. Obviously, there's some great segments on TV, but like we talked about with Brian Bowden on our podcast,
Oh, we got to
some of
give
the
a
stuff
shout
is
out to
more,
Brian. Big,
yeah,
huge shout out to Brian. Everybody knows.
absolutely, Brian is the absolute best. He's got so many things going on right now, so many podcasts, so many ideas.
We love you, Brian.
We love you,
Thank
Brian.
you for
yeah,
hooking me
we
up
truly
with
love you,
BOTA.
Brian.
Make sure you get him out to your convention because he's an incredible guest. Get him out there as a guest and have him really light everything on fire because he's awesome.
Check out him and all of his socials. Follow him.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I had him on the show a few times. Yeah, so you were telling me a little bit more about different locations and things like that, and your experiences.
Yeah. So what's interesting, growing up in New Jersey, I've always been, I'm an intuitive empath, so I've always had experiences with the paranormal and such growing up, and didn't really know what it was at that point. But yeah, we have all the weird New Jersey stuff here. So there's some famous,
Jersey
Clinton
Devil.
Road, the Jersey Devil going down. There was Greystone, which Greystone was a psychiatric hospital. When I was younger, they still had the original structures, and it was off limits, but we'd always sneak in there. We were technically trespassing. I don't condone that behavior, but
No.
we used to do that every Friday night. We'd sneak in there, and it was super creepy. Obviously, the thing was abandoned for 70 plus years, and
That's
we had
the
all
beautiful
kinds of
part of
fun
New
experiences.
The
That's
right
what
where
I
you are. So he was in Morris County. He had Greystone. I was in Essex County. I had Overbrook, which was a sanitarium on top of the tallest place in Essex County. And again,
Alex, what is it about sanitariums that are so haunted?
I think it's part of the level of pain
Right.
that's exhibited there, and he'll tell you a story about Greystone that's absolutely chilling, having to do with the cemetery that's right down the street from there. But for Overbrook, it was actually the hospital was knocked down in the 70s when some teenagers fell down the elevator shaft over there and died. But it was, during that whole satanic panic in the 80s and stuff, there's a lot of people drawing all kinds of pentagrams and other things going on over there. So they booked it up. But I mean, you would just see, did you ever see the House on Haunted Hill or Silent Hill or some of those where you would have it and it would be like torn up, twisted frames of beds that would all be torn up and twisted and piled off in the corner.
Right.
There'd be like 500 left shoes only, and like not because it was an old hospital, so it's like whatever they had on hand. Intake forms from like 1910s and 1920s, and all kinds of crazy. I mean, like super creepy things. Literally, you would feel the temperature drop 15 to 20 degrees from the outside to coming to when you entered these places, and there would just be miles of steam tunnels that would go on underground for miles and miles. So it's crazy, but Dave's got an awesome story as far as Greystones has.
Yeah, so what Alex is alluding to, there's a cemetery in Morristown. It's called Evergreen Cemetery. Non-denominational. It was actually founded mostly by Masons, interestingly enough.
Okay.
They exhumed most of the bodies because in downtown Morristown, there's what they call the Green. Famous historic place. There used to be, George Washington met there as a Mason with the British troops, actually. There's a famous image that practically every Masonic lodge in New Jersey has, I think, hanging up, and I have a couple at home even. But with that being said, the sanitarium Greystone, they were actually using that. So if anybody had an affair, if there was any kind of individual that they were trying to get rid of, they would say, we need to commit this person to Greystone. They would end up typically offing them in some way, shape, or form.
Usually
and then they were burying them.
they said.
in Evergreen Cemetery, but in the back. So there's a segment or a
Okay.
section, I should say, of the cemetery. They think there might be around 100,000 bodies there.
What? And these are all unmarked graves.
Like a potter's field, basically. They're all, yeah.
Golly. So yeah, that would definitely make that place for sure, active. Like, so
Oh, yeah.
what kind of activity did you get there, or have you gone to investigate that area?
We have.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, both obviously the sanitarium and also the cemetery. The cemetery, what's cool about it, it's also essentially a park. They have all types of trees, arborists, it's a beautiful cemetery, but you go there, towards the witching hours, which you're not supposed to be there, but we're friends with the caretaker, our friends also the historian, so we have a little bit of leniency there. But you hear all kinds of fun stuff at night over there. I've definitely seen mist apparitions. There was one night we actually, kind of a unique experience. We were standing by a grave. I could actually smell what smelled like burning flesh.
Oh, God.
And it was just really strange because it's just like, where's that smell coming from?
And it wasn't Alex, right?
No, it definitely wasn't Alex. Not
I
that
was
night
on fire at that moment. No.
I gotta throw some humor in there.
Yes, I spontaneously combust at other times, but not
Yes.
just that.
He's so hot right now, but
So hot right now. That handful.
I can see the fire, Alex.
Yeah.
so
My
but after burning incense, we like to burn incense to just cleanse the air and Palo Santo and other stuff as well. But
yes, I just got some in the mail today, actually.
Excellent. Great for protection, that's for sure, and cleansing.
It is.
But we ended up, I looked at the graves I was standing in front of, and I'm just like, what did that smell? Turns out there's 2 young children, unfortunately, that perished in the 1800s. They actually died in a house fire.
Oh.
So they were essentially manifesting right in front of us, but through that scent and just it was like you just knew something was there. Like I could feel it. I didn't see it though. Yeah. So that was.
There's so many different clairs, I've had on different people and talking about stuff like that. And you said you had a medium in your group. What kind of clairs does your medium have?
She has a lot of different modalities. So what's interesting about her, she is definitely clairvoyant. She sees a lot of the entities. She can interact with them. And the other thing, she also does a lot of cleansings, because that's why people call us to go to their houses and everything. So, we've dealt with demonic, we've dealt with all kinds of like poltergeists, other types of entities, shadow figures. So even though we're just conducting paranormal investigations, we're also there typically kind of fixing the problem, so to speak.
Right. Yeah.
And obviously, if we don't have the modality to fix that, we might call in somebody else. But so far, haven't come across anything we couldn't handle, so to speak.
Well, that's great that you do that for people. And do you have any reverends or anybody like that on your team?
Well,
we have some people that we know. In fact, one of them was a podcast guest he's a Mason as well, and he's a priest. I myself am an ordained minister, and but not having gone to a seminary or anything like that. So
right. Okay. Yeah, it's good that you have people like that, just in case, right? You never know when you may need that kind of stuff. For sure. So tell me about some other experiences y'all had.
Well, I mean, Dave, you want to tell them about the Revolutionary War soldiers and the hot tub?
In the hot tub. I hope they didn't have their sword in there.
That's definitely a fun one. So growing up, I lived, actually the funny thing is I live a half mile from where I grew up, but when I grew up, I lived right on Patriots Path. So Patriots Path was where the soldiers marched during the Revolutionary War.
Right.
George Washington. The French actually camped out where my high school was, in Bell Labs in Whippany, which now is a different property. And fun fact, that was actually where the first TV signal originally came from, was Whippany, New Jersey, with Bell Labs going to New York. but that was a whole other topic. Anyways, we're just hanging out one night in my friend's hot tub. We were in high school. There was 6 of us in the group that were sitting there. No drug use, no drinking. We were just hanging out. My friend's father always said, listen, I don't care how late you guys hang out here. As long as you're home and I know you're all safe, you're good.
Yeah, I think a lot of parents did that back then, didn't they? We had a parent that used to do that with ours too. She'd be like, we don't really care what you're doing as long as you're here and we know where you are and you're safe, right?
Sure. So we're just sitting there minding our business. We're chatting, just whatever. All of a sudden, this person comes out of the woods across the street. And there's a sidewalk. And we're all like, where did that person just come from? Just randomly. It was like 2:00 in the morning. It's just like, this person just walked out of the woods. It's like, that's unusual. But then as we're looking, they're walking by. And it's like, wait a minute. I could see through them.
Oh.
And as we're looking at them, we realize it's actually like a soldier marching.
Okay.
And they were in Revolutionary War garb. And they were just upright in a full march. And then we're all looking at each other like, do you guys see that? Because, just make sure we're not all
cool
crazy.
Is that, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So we're just sitting there like, oh, cool. All of a sudden, it does an about face and starts walking straight at us.
Oh, no.
Simultaneously, I think everyone jumped out of the hot tub, ran into the house, looked out the window. We're just like, what the hell was that? It's like, holy crap.
What was that? Well, that's
the guy just wanted to join you in the hot tub. It's not a big deal. Why are you making it weird?
I guess maybe he was cold. I don't know.
Right? Maybe he just wanted to jump in.
He's been dead for a while, so it's like, yeah, he needed some warm up. But
I want to come chill out, come hang out with y'all.
But then fast forward 2 months later, we're sitting out there again. We used to do that practically every weekend. And this time we see this soldier once again, but they're riding a horse. It looked like would have been a horse because they're just floating through the air, bobbing up and down.
Oh, okay.
And we're just like, what is going on here?
They're at it again.
Yep.
So, that's a pretty cool, like what we call a residual, right? I mean, he didn't. Right. But now this other guy looked at you and came towards you, though.
Yeah.
Or was that residual, do you think, when he was coming towards you? Was that still residual, you think? Or did he actually notice you?
I don't think it was residual. I actually think there was some intelligence there, some kind of interaction. And what was funny was we actually did a science project and we recorded, what were those, like the plasma balls or whatever they used to be, like you put your hands on
right,
them,
yes.
The links or the electricity would come out. So I was doing a weather report on video. This was on camcorder back in the day, dating myself a little bit, but
it's okay.
We turn in our assignment. Our teacher calls us down to the room. He's like, hey, you guys did an awesome job, but he said, how did you guys do that thing with the head popping out of the wall? And we're like, what? Like, what do you mean? So he puts the VHS in, hits play. You actually see, as I'm giving this report, it looks like a head comes out of the wall, looks down, looks back and forth, and goes back into the wall.
Oh my gosh. How cool is that? That was Tesla coming saying, hey, man, great job.
But the funniest thing is, he's just like, because he saw our faces, he just ejected the tape, handed it to us. He's like, see you later. He was so freaked out.
Wow, interesting. So is that some of the things that got you into it when you were a kid?
Yeah, although, I mean, when I was a kid, like, I used to actually, the funny thing, everybody that came to my house, they were like, your house is so haunted, it's ridiculous.
Okay, like, Alex, is it haunted?
It's like, whatever.
I've actually never been to his childhood home, so that part I don't know. But we've been together to some pretty haunted places, I would say. Mm-hmm. In fact, both of our lodges have things in residence.
Ours does too. What is it about that now? Do you suspect the gentlemen are just coming back to hang out and have a cigar and chill with their brothers?
I think there's part of that in Congdon, which is my old my lodge that I was master of. It's an old church, and so it used to be the first congregational church in Bernardsville, New Jersey,
Okay,
and
right.
then it turned into. They only lasted from 1910 when the place was built to 1928, and then they sold the building. So the Masons scooped it up. And what's fun is it's an old church. It's still got the bell in the belfry. Believe it or not, they left that so we can ring
Nice.
that whenever we want, which freaks the town out because they have no idea there's a church there. But yeah, if you look in the belfry from the street, you can definitely see outlines and shadows. Dave and I both saw that one night when we were chatting across the street at the bank parking lot there. But also inside, Dorothy came in, our medium. She came in, and we're gonna have her as a guest on the show very soon as well. She came in and she did a video going around, and you could clearly see the orbs flying all over the place. It's cognizant as good energy. It's
like
there's
a
nothing
gathering
bad
place.
there. There's nothing untoward, but it is. I don't want to use the word oppressive, but it's almost like a weighted blanket. If you're in that room and it's dark and you just have the candles on, it almost feels like this. It's pressing on you, but not in a bad way. Just it's there. It's significant, right? So the spirit of the place is significant, the egregore, so to speak. Yeah, and I don't know if you want to speak about Colonial.
Okay, that was
yeah. So
you just mentioned
Colonial
that.
Prospect, which is my Masonic lodge, they actually have the building was built in 1950. So
it was something else. Sorry,
that's all right.
I'm gonna light some sage. What?
Why not?
Yeah, not a bad idea.
The reason why I thought that was weird, you said egregore, and have you ever had Patty Negri on your show?
No.
Or Sam Baltrusis? No. Had Sam on recently, and we were talking a little bit about egregores and how they were like manifested items from just people talking about things that weren't there before, but because people keep talking about them, they come around, right?
Well, it's a matter of it goes to one of the universal principles of you create more of what you put your attention on, right? So a lot of people, just like the Christian religion has an egregore, the Muslim religion has an egregore, countries have egregores, political parties have egregores. There's so many of this stuff, and as you talk more about it, it takes on personalities of its own. You have battles of egregores in essence, right? The Crusades were the battles of the egregore of Christianity versus the egregore of Islam, at least and to some extent those still continue, those types of huge sort of sweeping conflicts that can occur to see which one is preeminent in essence. These things, they take on a personality of their own outside of just the parishioners or the practitioners, so to speak. So what's interesting to see is what happens after an empire falls, like the egregore of the Aztec religions, for instance, right? So there's a on Netflix, there used to be a cartoon of Constantine, John Constantine, and like the whole. So he summons up one of the old Aztec gods that's looking for a replenishment. He said, well, eat these demons and you'll be replenished in, whatever. But I guess that speaks to the idea of like, there's certain things that sort of hang around after their time to go has sort of passed. And then, they're hanging around hoping for a resurgence, I guess, at some point. So,
well, yeah, they want a bit of attention, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
They get bored. They're around for a long time, right?
Well,
so tell us some more, Dave, about your house. This you were telling us.
So the town I live in was founded in the 1600s. Actually, it was Native American land.
Okay.
It was actually a Native American name. There's still a lot of Native American influence here. I think that's applicable to most of the Northeast. There's a lot of Native American towns and names, but my understanding, where my childhood home was, Patriots Path runs right behind it.
Right.
Like I alluded to, I'm a half mile from there. I still live on Patriots Path. So definitely still have a lot of different paranormal experiences from that perspective. Although at this point, it doesn't even faze me. It's just like, whatever. Just roll over, go back to sleep.
Used to it, right? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But in my childhood home, anytime anybody came over, like when we had family visiting, whatever else, they were so freaked out. They wouldn't go up, like my cousins wouldn't go upstairs alone. They, they're just like, oh, they'd come home. They like the one day they were driving down the street and they were like, oh, who was just up in the bedroom there? I saw somebody standing in the window. It's like, no one.
Nobody's
So-
home, but
But I also, there's been a few times where, like, there was this one time, I don't even know what it was. It was like this small little creature. It would constantly come and just bang on the siding, like at night, just to mess with me. And I'd
Like
always
a-
like look out the window and it'd just be like, what are you doing?
like a little fairy type creature?
Kind of.
Or are we
But it
talking
was-
more of like a Bigfoot type thing?
It was more like a fairy type creature. I don't know what it was, honestly,
Mhm.
but it used to just come around and it would just start banging on the wall.
Just
And
saying, hey, I'm over here.
yeah. And the interesting thing is, you know, there were so many times, like even recently, my mom still lives there. Like her shelf collapsed, but the way the shelf collapsed, like there's no possible way. Like it literally fell, like it was almost like it was pulled out because on either side there's a brace and the board didn't break. And it's like the thing can't even bow because there was reinforcement all around it. So it's like somebody almost had to like pull the thing out and dump everything off the shelf.
Do you
It's
ever
like-
set up a night viz cam or trail cam or something like that around your house to see what's going on?
I've
Or do you not
tried.
want to? No.
Oh, it wouldn't even bother me or phase me, honestly. But we've tried that. Didn't really pick up anything. So
Where'd you put it?
unfortunately, I put it in the kitchen actually, just
The
to see
kitchen.
if we can capture anything, because a lot of the activity would happen downstairs.
Okay.
But what's kind of interesting, so we had a podcast guest on, Paulo Santos, his name is.
Oh,
Right.
he was a great guest. Yeah, he was.
He-
awesome.
Yeah.
During COVID, so what's really fascinating about Paulo, and he's one of the non-Masons we've had on the show, but
One of the
during
non-Masons.
COVID, back in March 2020, he traveled, he went down to, I think, Washington, D.C., he said. He
Right.
comes back, he's not feeling well.
Mhm.
And all of a sudden, his wife's a nurse. She said, go down to the basement, you know, just quarantine, stay away from the kids. He couldn't breathe. He ends up going to the hospital. After, what was it, a couple days he's there, he
Mhm.
sees everybody being carried out in body bags and everything else.
Oh,
horrifying. I mean,
Oh.
He said it completely freaked him out.
Yeah.
He starts making all his last arrangements, unbeknownst to his wife at the time.
Oh, Sam.
And what ends up happening, he's FaceTiming with his wife one day. All of a sudden, she just sees the ceiling.
yep.
He
He's like this, and
flatlined.
all of it's just like,
So he ended
Okay.
up flatlining. He had an out of body experience. He said he saw the doctors, the nurses were in the back of the room. And I won't give away the whole story in case anybody wants to watch it because it's truly incredible. But he ended up essentially, when he flatlined, he said a doctor came in, but it was not a doctor.
Mhm.
Everything in the hospital had gone black. He was still in his room.
Hmm.
And he said, he asked the doctor, am I dead? He said, yes. He's like, okay, now what? So the guy said, I'm going to give you a gift. He said, okay. You could see anything you want. So he ended up watching his kids grow up, his grandchildren grow up. He lived for millennia, like in this state.
Hmm.
He even ended up working for 3 years in this state.
Hmm.
And he saw life with him and without him, like alternative realities and everything else.
Wow.
And after that, he then said, well, after that, the guy comes back and he says, well, now you're going to hell because everybody goes to hell. And he said for 3 weeks, there was just a bronze plaque on the wall that said, keep the temperature between 68 and 72 degrees.
That's
that was the
strange.
one in the actual hospital room.
Right.
Huh.
So he's just laying in this hospital bed in hell, just looking at this. And he's like, what's going to happen?
That's
It's
weird.
truly a remarkable story.
And we'll
Yeah.
do. I'll do one quick one on that one. Just say,
Sure.
and
Okay,
I won't say
Alex.
any more. But it's
Yeah.
that plaque used to mess with him.
The plaque.
The plaque did. Nothing else would
Yeah.
change about the room. The room would remain the hospital room, at least in the
All right.
beginning.
All right.
and then the plaque would change to the first thing it changed to was, weren't all those Sundays in church a waste?
What?
Yeah.
It would
And
like
then-
say stuff like that on the plaque.
That's what it
Yeah.
would, nothing else would change except for that plaque. And that plaque would literally mess with his mind. And there were many other things happened while he was in hell. You got to watch the podcast to see, but but that was the first one that really got him. And it like just totally ripped right through all of his consciousness and everything, as a start. Cause that was the whole idea of hell. It was like, yes, there were physical punishments, but the worst part was that they would mess with you mentally. They'd push all your buttons because they knew what buttons to push, and time passes in hell. And it's kind of like, that's another one of the tortures, is like, they'll tell you something horrible is going to happen to your family or something in 2 weeks. And then you would have to live out the entirety of the 2 weeks up until the time when the thing actually happened, which was worse than actually seeing the thing happen, because you can't do anything about it. And the time is just slowly passing by. It's pretty horrifying stuff, but it's yeah.
Yeah, I've had a few people on and talk about, life after death experiences, and it really did change their lives, astronomically. And it sounds like you talked with another person who had an experience like that.
Yeah, it totally changed his life. And even to that plaque, he said it would say, "Where's your God now?" and just taunt him.
Yeah, and other stuff like that.
Not good.
He said he started questioning, does God actually exist? Is God here? Like, why am I here? Like, I wasn't a bad person in life. Like, what did I do? But to your point, it completely changed his life. And, after being in a coma for a couple of weeks, and he woke up in a new hospital, which is also an incredibly fun story to listen to, because he didn't know he was actually alive. So,
well, he
but
thought he was
definitely-
in hell, and then he, yeah. Again, it's. I don't want to ruin it, but definitely check it out, because it's a real page turner in terms of a story. No question.
Yeah, it sounds like something that we should definitely check out, for sure. Thanks for sharing that, for sure.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it makes you wonder, right? Like, what happens? Like, why did he say everybody goes there, right?
Well, yeah, I think there's and then he ends up going to heaven afterwards, and he sees 3 levels of heaven, at least as far as he was able to make out.
Because I know the ancients talked about different levels, especially Egyptians.
Yes, I agree.
Right. But what was most profound that he said? He actually said, if you had to pick 5 people to be in heaven with, who would you pick? And would those 5 people pick you?
That's an interesting one.
It's really a fascinating question, because when I started thinking about it personally, I was just like, man, who would I pick? And then it's like, would any of those individuals choose me? I don't know.
That's an interesting question.
It's a tough one, because you're like, I love my parents, but would I really want to be there with them forever? I don't know.
Can you bring your pets, though, Dave and Alex?
Can you bring your pets? I suppose you could. I mean, why not?
That was
bunch of
actually
animals with us.
So,
Yeah.
They're already there waiting for us, though. We know that. So let's talk about something different. Let's switch gears. I know you said you mentioned a little critter before, a cryptid creature. Do you have any other cryptid creature type stuff or high strangeness stuff? A UFO?
Yeah. Well, funny enough, 2 nights ago, I was actually with Alex. We were sitting outside before a Masonic meeting, and he had his back, there's a waterfront there, and we were just hanging out, smoking a cigar. I looked up, and I actually saw, like maybe it was a TR-3B, because I know the TR-3B, there's a military base in Pennsylvania where
I don't know how many of those are really out there floating around.
I don't know how many are or not, but it was essentially triangular form, elongated. It wasn't a Starlink satellite or anything. I actually looked at the ISS map, looked at Starlink, I looked at satellite maps. What was interesting, I saw this, and I'm just like, is that a UFO? I took out my phone, tried to record it. It was recording on my screen. I actually saw the video was 44 seconds long. When I stopped it, the video was 2.5 seconds.
Oh gosh, don't you love it when they mess with your electronics? Kind of
I
like
was just like,
Skinwalker when they're always messing with stuff.
yeah,
But you know, it makes you wonder. Okay, is it extraterrestrial or is it ours? And do we have this wicked tech? Because you know, most of our stuff that you see around us is old
Mhm.
military tech that
Right.
got published and put out for normal people to use, right? You know, I've had Jim Goodall, and he came
Mhm.
on. He talked a lot about stealth and Blackbird and things like that. And you
Yep.
know, there's a lot of tech that we got, especially with DARPA and all that, that's not talked about.
Right.
But
Absolutely.
is it us or is it them? What do you think?
Well, that's the bigger question, right? And according to, our first podcast guest, we've recovered several different alien species bodies. They're they're actually silicone based. They're not carbon based,
Mhm.
and they have a triple helix, and in their DNA strain. And he said he couldn't confirm or deny how many actually exist, but he said we've recovered a lot of the craft. We reversed engineered a lot of those things.
Right.
And, even when we had Timothy Hogan on, he's the Grandmaster of the Knights Templar. Great episode.
Phenomenal.
Talked a lot about ancient
Really
Egypt
good.
and other,
Nice,
ancient philosophies,
right?
alchemy, other types of stuff. But
Mhm.
he has access to going to the Great Pyramid.
Oh
And
wow.
he said, anytime they go into the Great Pyramid, when you go into the sarcophagus up there in the King's Chamber, he said anybody that sets foot in there instantly has an out-of-body experience where they see some other planet with some kind of UFO staring at them. And it's basically just like, hey, we're here. And then
Interesting.
they're kind of transported back.
So one of the things that I'm sure Dave was also going to mention is, and we were told in the first podcast is, there's so much discussion about extraterrestrial. What's
Right.
not discussed and what's a better representation is extra dimensional.
Yes, yes, there you go. I think you got the nail on the donkey there.
Yeah.
Yep.
That must be a Canadian
Sounds
expression,
painful,
I guess.
I meant to say tail instead of nail.
Well, we're just nailing that donkey.
Listen, whatever gets you through the day, I guess.
Oh my god.
I think the U.S. military has video of that from Afghanistan. But anyway.
Ooh, well, yeah, we'll move right along there.
Move along, yeah.
The idea being that extra dimensional beings were sort of disturbed by our initial atomic bomb drops when we were busy
They're
with the
very
Manhattan
concerned
Project.
about nuclear things. They don't like us messing with nukes, do they?
They don't, because somehow, and Eric talked a little bit about this, is basically we can't really do much to them because they're so far ahead of us and they're so much more developed, being in other dimensions higher than ours, that basically it's like you're trying to touch. It's like a three-dimensional person trying to touch a two-dimensional piece of paper with some squiggles and stuff on it. I mean, that's like what we are to them, right? So we're so much more simplistic than they are. And then all of a sudden,
or Alex, are they actually here with us, but we just can't see them because our eyes can't see that, right? I mean, there's insects that have different things that can see the spectrums that we can't. So who's to say they're not hanging around here with us right now? Could be one right next to you, but they're in a
exactly
different spectrum
what
and
Eric
you can't
alluded
see them.
to.
Yeah.
Eric actually said they're six-dimensional beings, and he said because of the nuclear explosions, if anybody saw the movie Oppenheimer, Einstein actually warned the U.S. government, do not detonate a nuclear weapon, because he theorized it might actually wipe out existence.
Well, he thought it would be a chain reaction where all the atoms would then catch fire, and it would be just everything in the universe. So you can't, you would never be able to.
We're keep messing with that stuff, and we don't know where we're at with that, right?
Well, that's the whole point of, you would never be able to, or should never be able to
black hole or something.
One of those weapons in the in space, in deep space.
Right.
Well, you couldn't, because there isn't oxygen. But if they brought oxygen with them, people should do everything possible to prevent that from happening, because I think at that point you would create a chain reaction that would knock everything out.
Yeah,
would
but what
not be
Eric
cool.
alluded to in the episode is essentially when we detonated the nukes and we were testing these alien beings or whatever they are, they're interdimensional beings.
Right.
He said their instrumentation went haywire and it actually brought them into our realm and they crashed. And that's where we were able to recover the craft, recover the bodies. And that's why in mostly the 40s and 50s, this is what was happening, because we were testing nuclear weapons.
Right, we were, weren't we? Yeah, interesting theory on that. Definitely.
Yeah, and
that's where we got a lot of that stuff, but we also attracted their attention. So now they know, where they're paying attention to us where they really weren't paying attention before. And I don't know that we want that attention. I don't know that that's,
No.
We're assuming that they're benevolent, or we're
Yeah.
hoping, and because if they're not,
by the sounds of all these abductees, it doesn't sound like it. They're kind of like using us. I've had Nomar was on before you guys, and we were kind of talking about that and how, different people were, the abductees talk about horrific things that were done to them, DNA extraction and things like that.
The abductees, my understanding at least, is there was some sort of agreed upon contract that gets signed before you come here, that the Greys get a chance to work with you, and they only abduct the people that have already said yes to that. So I don't know. That's one explanation. So it isn't really.
What do you mean they signed a contract? Are you going to go sign a contract? Yeah, take me.
Yeah, in essence. I mean that's at least the way that some of these people have explained it, to where there is a mutually agreed upon thing saying, yes, we will submit to a certain amount of testing, because they are trying to figure out their own way of getting back to whatever reality they're supposed to be getting back to. They came here to Earth to really understand our markabas and the way that we function as a humanity, and as a, I mean, if you read all the stuff, the Illuminatus trilogy and all of that other stuff by Robert Anton Wilson, he really gets at some interesting stuff with that. And that was, back in the 70s and 80s to a great extent.
Well, what do you think about the cyclic thing, though? Like, maybe, when you think about the ancients, did we wipe ourselves out before with a nuke? Because they say they found some things in some areas where it looks like it was nuked anciently.
I mean, it's all speculation. I don't think there's anybody left. But what Timothy Hogan said that was very interesting was he thought that the Valley of the Kings and some of the places down there were actually shelters against the issues that happened in the Younger Dryas. Like, they knew this stuff was coming, and they found a way to get themselves into some sort of shelters, which prevented a total loss of humanity, and then they came back out and start again, so to speak.
I mean, that makes sense, right? Because it seems like everywhere they talk about whether it be the water or something, but was it global? Was it, everybody talks about all these different theories about, was it a shift of the axis and all this kind of stuff. So you never know. I mean, and then of course you got planet Nibiru. People talk about the 12th planet, and was there another planet that came into our solar system that kind of shifted all the heavenly bodies around? There's so many different theories.
Yeah, there's quite a bit of theories, and I think, it seems like there's been obviously cataclysmic events that have happened, and the Great Flood, and so many civilizations have talked about that all around the world. And,
they have, yeah.
I think one could posit that when you look at some of the ancient structures, the ancient megaliths, Göbekli Tepe, and some other places, it's very plausible.
Makes
there
you
was
scratch
advanced
your
civilizations,
head.
right?
Right. So now I'm going to pull up your link tree here. I'm going to schmooze around on there. Is there anywhere you want me to click on?
Our main site is on YouTube. That's where we have most of our shows.
Let's go in there. I think I still have your tree, but I can pull this one down and pull up your YouTube. You want me to do that?
Sure.
Whatever you'd like. Whatever's easier for you. Sure.
Drag that off. And show your other one there. And let's grab that one because everybody loves YouTube. Let's show yours. Brothers of the Arcana on YouTube.
There we are. So you'll see all the various. How many shows do we have by now, Dave? We're about
There's
13
13 shows uploaded. Those are the full podcast episodes. What we do, we try to break them up. The first couple episodes, they're roughly 2 hours apiece.
Yeah.
They're packed with a ton of information, great questions, super, just tons of knowledge. So if you see like episode 1, that's a little over 2 hours. Then we started splitting them up into 2 just to make it easier for our viewers. We also have, we're out on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. We're starting to upload to Rumble as well. So
nice.
yeah,
Okay.
you can see episode 7 was Palo Santo. We were talking about, Timothy Hogan was the 4th episode, the former Grandmaster of the Knights Templar, or still is the Grandmaster of the Knights Templar, I should say.
How did you manage to hook that person on? That must have been a great episode going.
It really was. Dave brought him 2 years in a row to New Jersey.
Yeah, Tim's actually, so he is a Freemason as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I had, we've read some of his books, and he's just an incredible person. He's become a great friend. We actually brought him out to New Jersey in my first year as master to give a lecture at the lodge. We ended up saying, hey, you want to come out, have a barbecue with us, smoke cigars, drink bourbon beforehand? He flew out. We ended up having the most incredible conversation ever, just talking about all kind of ancient technology, UFOs. He talks about, he worked on some government projects with UAPs coming out of the sun. He also talked about, some of his experiences with the, he's gone to some conferences. He does a lot of the cons all over the world as well. And, just a wealth of knowledge. Really great guy.
Nice.
We've become fast friends with him. So this year when we flew him out for another lecture, I said, hey, you want to come on our podcast? He said, sure. We also recently had Scott Walter on. So Scott,
Kensington
he has a couple of books,
Runestone
Runestone, and talking about the Templars and how the United States was in New Jerusalem.
Right.
So definitely some pretty cool historic information. We try to bring the truth out there, whether it's, whatever topic we're doing, we just try to put out as much information as possible.
You want to give a shout out to your fans, Dave and Alex?
Sure. Go ahead, Dave.
Well,
don't be shy.
No, we just want to thank everybody for listening. Alex and I have been really genuinely enjoying the journey so far. We're trying to put out the best content possible, have the best guests on, and we truly appreciate your support, your feedback.
Absolutely.
We're very authentic. We like to just put out the truth and, talk shop. So if anybody wants to reach out to us, by all means, go ahead. We'll gladly chat with you and get back to you as quickly as we can. I mean, sometimes we're pretty busy, so we might not respond immediately, but
everybody follow Alex and Dave with Brothers of the Arcana, and also check them out on their link tree. I'll put the link tree up in the description. And contact me, your host, Jen, at paranormal.nl.podcast@gmail.com, or follow PNL Podcast, sponsored by the BOG team, a Boots on the Ground Paranormal Investigation team, at the Linktree ParanormalNL Podcast. And we are on UPRN, United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM in New Orleans, and 105.3 Gulf Coast, and we are pre-recording. And UPRN is a 30-year-old award-nominated FM station with a large podcast division, and UPRN are pioneers in our evolving world of podcast and bringing the absolute best productions in various genres, which include, but are not limited to, metaphysical, current events, lifestyle, sports, holistic, music, politics, and news. The UPRN network also has a wide range of shows that collectively delve into topics which would be deemed high strangeness, including paranormal, ufology, cryptozoology, ancient technology, civilizations, esoteric, occult, conspiracy theories, and anything else that would be considered unexplained, supernatural, and out of the world. Follow UPRN, but mostly follow these guys here, Alex and Dave, brothers of the Arcana. So tell us another little story. You got about, looks like about maybe 5 minutes left to give us another story.
Wow, great question. I mean,
What are you
there's so many.
smoking there? I know you've got that there, but like that's not what you're smoking right now is incense. But tell us about your cigars. You mentioned your cigar. I gotta throw that out there.
Yeah, we love cigars. Dave and I smoke like fiends, and yeah, we have different palates. I'm more on the light to medium body, especially most of the day, unless I've had a big meal. He starts out with some sort of a crazy Nicaraguan thing that tastes like rocks and twigs and things.
You ever had the little cigarillo ones in Mexico? Like the different
absolutely.
tastes?
Yeah, absolutely. We also do the infused ones from time to time. For those, there's I think nothing better than a good tabak from Drew Estates or a factory suite, something like that. For a light smoke, I like the Underground Shade, also Drew Estate. Metallica just came out with a brand new one called Blackened.
Oh, there you go.
Pretty cool.
Do you want to give a few more shout outs to your podcasts?
Sure. So I mean, we had Nestor Ramirez on, which was fantastic. He was talking about ayahuasca and medicine journeys, shamanic journeying, which was absolutely really cool. We had Father Pat Contreras on. He was talking about exorcisms and all kinds of very interesting demonic things and clearing houses and doing other stuff on. We had a Dr. Freddie
Star,
who's a clinical psychiatrist, neuropsychiatrist. He put a couple of caps on our heads and tuned in all of our brain waves to see where we're at.
Oh, neat. While you were on air?
Yeah, while we were on there.
Oh, how cool is that? Oh, I got to check that one out.
And then we had a psychologist, Brandon Kornblue, who's really awesome, talking about what it means to be a man today and things. So we're a little all over the place with our stuff. We're dialing it more in now to focus more on esoteric stuff, paranormal, and sort of what it means to exist as a man and as someone who's wanting to walk that enlightenment path, kind of thing. So yeah, that's us in a nutshell.
Yeah, I really like that you've had such a big variety on your show, and it helps. I mean, you pull in a lot of other guests, shall we say, when you do a lot of different things. Do you do a lot of local stuff too with any of your local folks? Do you want to give a few shout outs and about a minute or less on paranormal tourism of your area in New Jersey?
Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, with Dorothy Toner in Morristown, we're actually talking about doing some kind of paranormal tours, especially Evergreen Cemetery and some other places. So we'll definitely be putting more information out there from that perspective. And anybody like obviously Brian Bowden, when he comes up here to New Jersey to visit, because he mostly is down in Florida nowadays, but he's an incredible friend and he's got some awesome fun experiences as well. And we're looking forward to actually going out and trying to find Bigfoot with him. So
absolutely, that'll be fun.
Yeah, they've got a lot of stuff down in Florida. They've also got the skunk ape down there in Florida, and hopefully no more hurricanes.
Yeah,
oh my gosh, right? What's up with that? But I want to thank you both again for being on UPRN. This is pre-recorded on 107.7 FM and 105.3 FM from New Orleans and also Gulf Coast. And thanks again for Dave and Alex for being on from BOTA, Brothers of the Arcana.
Thank you
Okay,
so
we're
much.
gonna.
And it's
Thank
absolutely
you all.
a pleasure to be here.
Yes, thanks so much. And follow the BOG team. They're sponsoring us, or the Boots on the Ground team, Paranormal Investigations out of Newfoundland and Labrador. Thank you so much, everybody. We're going to peace out with a bit of metal, and I'll bring you off for an off-air chat.
With a sense that they can silence profound, the boots on the ground team.